And now I'd like for Karen Kronbaker, our Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent, to come forward and introduce her guest.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am so glad to welcome you all here, and thank you for coming. Like Laurel said, my name is Karen Kronbaker. I'm the Extension Agent in Ag and Natural Resources. One of the programs that I am responsible for putting on within Extension is our Native Plant Master Program. Before I bring Lynn up and introduce her, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the Native Plant Master Program because it is a relatively new program within Larimer County. The Native Plant Master Program began in 1997 in Jefferson County, and since that time, it is now in 13 counties across the state of Colorado, Larimer County being one of those. The uniqueness of the Native Plant Master Program is it is a class that is taught outdoors. And I'm going to let Lynn talk a little bit more in detail about the actual course or the class that takes place. Native Plant Master Program began in Larimer County in 2008. We just completed our 6th year of the program. We have had 22 courses taught in Larimer County over the past 6 years. Many of those courses have been taught in a number of City of Fort Collins natural areas, U.S. Forest Service lands up the Poudre Canyon, as well as in Laurie State Park. We've had 232 participants go through the program in the past 6 years. The outreach for the Native Plant Master Program is through educational contacts. So it's those contacts that our volunteers make to others outside of the program, teaching them something that they learned within or from the Native Plant Master Program. We currently have 13 certified Native Plant Masters volunteers in our program, and we have 10 that are apprentices, so they're working on getting their certified volunteer status within the program. Only because I just got done compiling a lot of data from our program this past week for the year, I have these numbers to share with you. But our volunteers in the program have educated 932 individuals this year alone, youth, and over 2,000 individuals, adults, about native plants or something that they learned in the Native Plant Master Program. They provided 560 hours of volunteer time back to the program. Our instructors are vital to the success of a Native Plant Master Program. And Lynn Rubright, who I will ask to come up here in just a moment, has been an instructor for the Native Plant Master Program in Larimer County for 3 years now, and she began the program in 2009. And just because I'm a numbers person, I'm going to give you a little bit more numbers on the educational contacts that Lynn has made since she's been with the Native Plant Master Program in Larimer County. Lynn has educated over 1,400 individuals, 1,400 adults about something learned through the Native Plant Master Program, and 201 youth. Lynn has created a wildflower brochure for the wildflower identification brochure for the Soapstone Prairie natural areas that is handed out to visitors, and I'm sure it's information that she's gained through the Native Plant Master Program. So with that, please help me welcome Lynn Rubright.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I have in the past been a master gardener, so it's fun to come and I get to see some of my master gardener friends. And so I've been involved with extension activities in one way or another for quite a while. And Karen gave you some of these wonderful numbers about our program, and I think it's important because people hear the word Native Plant Master and think, what on earth is that? Who cares? But I think that we really do have an important outreach to the community. We serve sort of 3 groups of people in each of our classes. One of those groups are people who are employees of various government organizations. We have a lot of city employees, we have county employees, we occasionally have a state employee, and we have national government employees, like particularly Forest Service people. And those people are sometimes required by their bosses to come and take our classes so that they are better equipped to talk to the public about the plants and vegetation of the areas in which they work. So that's an important component of our classes. The second group are primarily volunteers. We have a good number of volunteers. We have lots of master gardeners come through our program. We have volunteers with the Gardens on Spring Creek. We have volunteers with a number of organizations who work with plants, who work with natural resources, and they want to get a little bit better at knowledge of our local flora. So those two comprise the majority of the people in our classes. We do have another category, and that is people who take the class simply for their own personal interest. They just want to know more about plants. Often they have just moved here from Iowa or somewhere, and they look around and say, ooh, I wonder what that is. And so they come to find out. Our teachers in the program are outstanding. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the other ones. We have some wonderful professional botanists. Several of our people are from the Colorado Natural Heritage Program. We have one instructor who's on the staff of the City Natural Areas Department. We've had CSU professors. We've had some wonderful, very knowledgeable instructors, and they're also a great deal of fun. So all of these people are unpaid volunteers, so they're giving of their time and expertise to help others learn a little bit more about the plants. As Karen told you, we do most of our work in natural areas of the city because we have such a wonderful collection of natural areas with a great variety of plants and animals and environments, so we can accomplish tremendous amounts without going very far. Although we have used Laurie State Park, and we continue to, and we used to go to Young Gulch until we got closed out of there. I think it's still closed from fire and flood and other things, but we take advantage of the wonderful variety of environments which our local scene offers to us. And what do? Well, we have what we ask people to do is to take 3 different classes in order to become a certified native plant master. And each of those classes consists of 3 days, 3 sessions on usually successive weeks. For instance, we have a class in June. We'll have the first and second and third Fridays, our class days. And the class takes most of the day, usually from about 9 to 1. Occasionally we get run out by the weather a little early, but so people will take 3 of those with a total of 9 days of learning in order to become a certified native plant master. And what we do in those classes, we generally have from 10 to 15 people in the class, sometimes more, and we sometimes lose a few people along the line. They get into this and say, oh, I don't know whether I want to do that or not, or they have personal reasons. But we find we can't very well have more than about 12 to 15 at a time because we stand around and learn about plants together, and we're all looking at the same thing, and we're all very careful, particularly in natural areas where we have a permit usually to pick like one flower to look at, but we're not out there picking things willy-nilly, so we all have to stand around and look at the same things. And we have 3 themes. One is native plants, a second is weeds, and a third is plants that have native plants that have horticultural value. So we try to hit on all of those 3 themes as we go through the class. And we have some very interesting discussions on things like weeds, for instance. For one thing, we always have people in our classes from the weed district, and they have one approach to weeds, and some of our botanists have an entirely different approach to weeds, and so we get in some really interesting discussions. But the major unifying element of all of these themes is that we're teaching people to identify plants. And we use this little book, which if any of you are into plants, you've seen before. This is Weber and Whitman's 4th edition of the Flora of the Eastern Slope. And this is what's called a dichotomous key. And not everyone here probably has been exposed to that. But what you do is go through this page by page, and it asks you questions with a sort of two choices in each question. For instance, are the leaves on this plant alternate on the stem, or are they opposite on the stem? And you pick which one it is. And then the next question is, are the flowers blue or the flowers yellow? Oh, the flowers are yellow. So you pick that choice, and then you go down the line until you've eliminated essentially everything else and you've arrived at the plant. This sounds a little easier than it is, actually, but we work at this, and this has been frequently called the hymnal. So we'll say, take out your hymnal and turn to page 84, and we work through the key together. Well, the question you're probably asking yourself is, so why is that important? How does it fulfill Extension's purpose of disseminating information to the public, to our constituents? Well, it's part of our historical basis in the land-grant university to disseminate fact-based information to the public. And so we're teaching these people how to identify correctly the plants that they see, and sometimes that's really critical. We find, for instance, on some of our hikes in the mountains that people have been pulling up plants they thought were bad, pulling up thistles, for instance, because of an assumption that all thistles are bad. Well, we have some beautiful native thistles which are just fine and are important habitat for butterflies, other kinds of insects, so you don't want to pull them. So you need to know. You need to know which plant it is you're really looking at so that these decisions can be made intelligently. And our volunteers, our participants in this program, are required not only to take these classes, but at the third class of every session, there's a test. They have to pass a test to be able to recognize these plants. And the important part is that when they finish those 3 classes or 9 sessions, they are required to have this outreach contact. They're required to talk to 60 people over a 3-year period on these native plants. So we really think that we are serving this objective of reaching out to the community, and most of our people do that and do a good deal more than that. Our Master Gardener participants, for instance, use their information and talk to many people. So we really do serve in that outreach function. Also, to me, one of the most important things about learning to identify these plants correctly, and you'll find it in keys like this, is that these people are really learning more, a great deal more, about the environment, the ecology of these plants, the ecology of biotic communities than they ever might have suspected. And in order to key a plant correctly, you have to observe very carefully. We all carry hand lenses, we look at little details like hairs on the leaves or that kind of thing. We're teaching people to really observe their environment, and they are amazed often at the things they find. And we're asking them questions about, where does this plant grow? The key sometimes will say, this plant of dry upland areas, or is it a plant of lower wet locations? So they're having to look at their environment as well. And it's impossible, I think, to do that kind of work without being more aware of the environments they're working with, and what plants and animals, what the ecological connections are in all of these environments. And to simply be a better observer, a more keen observer of the environment, helps make people better stewards. Once they've seen some of these wonderful characteristics of plants, well, they want to preserve these kinds of environments. So we think that we have a great multiplier effect for the public, even though we have a rather specialized way of doing it. So thanks so much for letting us come and be part of the day with you.